This convoy is en route to an area along Highway 15 between Bien Hoa and Vung Tau, a coastal resort town at the mouth of the Saigon River, some 65 kilometers southeast of Saigon. Its mission is to establish a forward command post from which a multiple armed search and destroy operation by elements of the 1st Infantry Division will be controlled. It is January 28th, and Operation Mallet is beginning. As the forward CP nears operational status, and while artillery batteries are occupying positions nearby, Chinook helicopters begin arriving with assault troops. At the CP area, these units of the 1st Infantry reassemble and await the arrival of UH-1 helicopters. The Hueys will carry the troops into the initial attack against the Viet Cong. Other infantry companies were carried by Hueys from staging areas near their base of operations directly to assault positions. From the landing zones, the units deploy and move forward in a westward sweep through the jungle. The purpose of Operation Mallet was to hunt and kill or capture Viet Cong guerrillas operating in this area, some 35 kilometers east of Saigon, and to destroy their camps and hideaways. On the first day of Operation Mallet, this unit of the 1st Infantry was filmed as it burned deserted huts used by the VC. After conferring with a unit commander, a forward observer departs in an O-13 light observation helicopter. He will help provide aerial surveillance for the advancing troops. The units continue their sweep through the area and move off narrow trails for probes through dense jungle. In the late afternoon, when this unit had forged within 4,000 meters of its designated resupply area, it came under fire from well-concealed Viet Cong snipers. Airstrikes and artillery support against the objective were requested. The unit withdrew for the night after one man was killed, and reconnaissance had indicated a large complex of bunkers and tunnels. On the following morning, January 29th, U.S. and Vietnamese Air Force planes hit the bunker complex with bombs. As the airstrikes end, the supporting artillery units begin bombarding the objective. When the artillery fire shifts, units of the 1st Infantry move out and converge from different directions upon the objective area. The units encountered no resistance as they cautiously entered the maze of bunkers, but the area was laced with tripwires leading to booby traps located in trees and huts. The troops threw hand grenades into the vast network of bunkers and tunnels which honeycombed the area. They then made a thorough search of all bunkers and huts. No Viet Cong were found, and it was assumed that they had slipped out during the night before the airstrike, taking most of their weapons and equipment with them. However, A sizable cache of paperwork, medical supplies, food, some clothing, and training literature was captured. Pertinent items were forwarded to G2 for interpretation. The deserted compound was believed to be a district political camp housing some 30 VC. Three days later, on February 1st, other elements of the 1st Infantry were filmed as they continued Operation Mallet. The sweep westward has now brought units to an area some 16 kilometers east of Saigon. Late in the afternoon, the units encountered heavy fire, plus numerous mines and booby traps. The sweep forward is halted. Supporting APCs and tanks cover a withdrawal of several hundred meters. Here, while tactical airstrikes are requested, the wounded are given emergency treatment and evacuated. After the airstrikes, which could be seen from the tallest buildings in Saigon, artillery and mortar fires were called onto the objective areas throughout the night. On the following day, February 2nd, resistance was again encountered. After additional airstrikes and artillery support, however, the 1st Infantry units overran the complex of fortifications with no opposition. One of the ROK units is deployed near the narrow neck of the Cam Ranh Bay Peninsula. From their base camp, the Marines conduct patrols against the VC. Elements of the 2nd Marine Division, Republic of Korea, are assigned certain security and protection missions in the Cam Ranh Bay area of South Vietnam. These include guarding the port facilities and the new air base nearby. One of the ROK units is deployed near the narrow neck of the Cam Ranh Bay Peninsula. From their base camp, the Marines conduct patrols against the VC. They also man observation posts along the bay shore. The overall function of this unit is to prevent infiltration by land. Another unit, deployed on what is known as the South Peninsula, uses 106 recoilless rifles to control the mouth of the bay. Its location is also designed to prevent Viet Cong from bringing mortars within range of installations on the opposite shore. Reconnaissance conducted by the ROK units includes that on the bay itself. Here, patrols move out in 2 U.S. Army Larks for a routine check on boat movement in the bay and adjacent waters. These water patrols are designed to halt both smuggling and VC activity on the bay. Native fishing boats, junks, and other craft are searched for weapons, contraband, or any guerrilla material. As a precautionary measure, many small craft and their occupants, who, even though from all appearances are harmless, are also routinely searched. Another ROK unit is deployed near the pontoon bridge that connects the peninsula to the mainland near Highway 1. Its mission includes routine checks of civilian traffic on Highway 1 and the protection of Allied traffic on the mainland approach to the bridge. President Johnson and his chief diplomatic and military advisors arrive in Honolulu on February 5th for an historic 3-day conference with the leaders of South Vietnam. In announcing the conferences, President Johnson indicated that their purpose would be a review of our complete program in Vietnam, including economic, social, and political subjects, as well as military ones. Among those accompanying the President are Defense Secretary McNamara and the Secretary of State Dean Rusk, as well as other key cabinet members and top-level officials. On the following day, the presidential party returns to Honolulu's International Airport to welcome the top Vietnamese leaders arriving from Saigon. Heading the Vietnamese delegation are the Chief of State, Lieutenant General Nguyen Phan Thu, and Air Vice Marshal Nguyen Cao Ky, the Prime Minister. President Johnson and General Tew trooped the line. Next, Mr. Johnson will make an address welcoming the Vietnamese leaders and briefly outlining the objectives of the conference. The President of the United States.
We meet here in a time of testing and trial, but we will talk also of hope and harvest. Our friends in Korea and Australia and New Zealand have sent their own men to join with Vietnamese and Americans in a conflict to decide if aggression and terror are the way of the future, or whether free men are to decide their own course.
The day after the Vietnamese leaders arrive, the President's motorcade heads for Camp Smith, where the work of the Honolulu Conference will begin. A plenary meeting will be followed by working sessions on all major topics. Arriving at Saigon's Tan Son Nhut Airport on January 1st for a 5-day inspection tour of Army facilities and operations in Vietnam is Secretary of the Army Stanley Reser. He is greeted by General William C. Westmoreland and members of his command. A briefing at the 1st Logistical Command headquarters was followed by an inspection of warehousing and shipping activities at the Saigon port area. At Phu Loi, some 150 kilometers southwest of Saigon, Secretary Reser talks with members of an aviation unit and inspects new armament and armor used with UH-1 helicopters. High on the topics of discussion were the problems of resupply to units fighting 7,000 miles from their homeland. During his tour, Secretary Reser also visited units in the Bien Hoa, An Khe, and Pleiku areas. On January 24th at the Saigon Airport, Lieutenant General John A. Heintich's Deputy Commander Mac V. and members of his staff welcome Lieutenant General Gene Engler to his new assignment in Vietnam. After the airport ceremonies, General Engler reviews a color guard in his honor and is introduced to members of his future staff. He assumes his new duties as Deputy Commander of the U.S. Army, Vietnam. This position, recently upgraded, was previously held by Brigadier General John T. Norton, now serving as General Engler's Chief of Staff. General Engler's previous assignment was in Washington as Commanding General of the Supply and Maintenance Command. As a major part of the buildup at Cam Ranh Bay, elements of the U.S. Army engineers are constructing a number of new type warehouses. On 15 January, we see engineers prepare forms into which concrete will be poured to establish footings. As this phase proceeds, bulldozers level the surrounding area. Vietnamese workmen have been hired to assist. This type of construction permits large storage areas, in this case 200 by 250 feet, to be built with a minimum of materials. At the same time, they incorporate the strength and durability needed to withstand the severe winds and rains common to the area. The supporting beams and girders are secured before the roofing is begun. In the final stage of construction, long sheets of corrugated rust-proof metal are used to cover the warehouse. The thin but durable roofing material permits a much lighter supporting structure to be used, saving both time and expense. The speed of construction enables the Army to provide substantial storage facilities in a short space of time. Traffic in the vicinity of Cam Ranh Bay is handled by the U.S. Army Military Police. They form part of the overall security for the area, with special emphasis on the piers and the village. One section they patrol is the fence, which marks the limit of the military reservation. Vendors' stalls are built close against the barbed wire. During vending hours, sales are made directly through the fence. A warning in Korean that beyond the fence is off limits. The American sign with a similar message informs soldiers that the village of Cam Ranh is closed to them. Jeeps are used to patrol the roads and terrain in their jurisdiction. On 28 January 1966, cargo vessels are docked at Cam Ranh Bay to be unloaded. The unloading and storage of the materials is handled by transportation and logistical units at the harbor. Large 5-ton trailer trucks are used to handle the volume. Empty trucks are backed into position so that when fully loaded, they may drive straight forward. Pallet loads of sea rations are raised from the hold of the ship and swung overside directly onto the waiting trucks. They are immediately driven to one of the several storage areas nearby. All the techniques of material handling and the latest mechanical equipment speed the movement of supplies which pour through in heavy volume. But even modern equipment encounters problems. This large truck tries to fight its way out of the sandy harbor shore. It makes slow progress until it is pushed by another piece of equipment not handicapped by a heavy load. U.S. Army engineers are making improvements on Cam Ranh Bay Harbor. This project required their working on a raft made of 2 boats lashed together because it involved the laying of a pipeline over the water. The line is needed to drain waste to a more distant point. Methods were improvised on the spot to perform this difficult task. The pipe is manhandled into place by men who must simultaneously maintain their balance in the boat. As they work almost in the shadow of ships unloading at De Long Pier, the men are preparing this most important harbor for the heavy demands of future shipping. Operational maintenance is performed on the Caribou by members of the aviation company. Even though it is late January of 1966, the climate permits outdoor servicing. A landing gear wheel is replaced. The engine housing is secured after inspection has been completed. Recording is made in the logbook of the details of the servicing. At the aviation company's installation at Suc Trong, the engine is tested before restoring the plane to active operation. The Caribou, with its short takeoff and landing capability, is of particular value in Vietnam. The men inspect Viet Cong equipment captured on the previous operation. It includes weapons and boxes of ammunition. This is the Latin American Military Communication System site at Guatemala City. Its antenna and transmitter tie it into a worldwide communication system through the hub station in the Canal Zone. The operation of this station is being taken over by an all-civilian crew provided by a contractor. Military personnel are being phased out. Teletype as well as voice transmissions are handled through the board. The operators also perform maintenance. Channels of transmission can be quickly checked and corrections made if needed. The officer in charge reviews with the civilian contractor's representative specific details of the conversion to civilian operation. A counterpart of the installation we have just seen is the Lamcus station at Managua, Nicaragua. This site, built by an American contractor, began operation in May 1964. Although now operated by civilians, the station is under military supervision. The American Embassy and other U.S. offices in the capital city have the advantage of the most modern communications here in Nicaragua. In February 1966, these Vietnamese flee their homes to avoid the Viet Cong. In their flight, they carry food and a few of their possessions. Because the Viet Cong often travel amid innocent groups, Korean military police are checking the refugees for weapons or enemy documents. Until this year, the Viet Cong used this area as one of their main supply sources, taking half of the 11 million ton output of rice. Trucks are provided to carry the refugees to the relative safety of the town. As part of their assignment to provide area security, the Koreans include 105 millimeter howitzers in their equipment. The battery commander supervises the gun team. The men inspect Viet Cong equipment captured on the previous operation. It includes weapons and boxes of ammunition.